I've been telling you all as far as the Kellogg Peace Pact that happened in Havana, Cuba. This meeting was determined upon by the Havana Pan-American Conference, which condemned war as an instrument of national policy and declared for the pacific settlement of conflicts between states. And I told you that, 21 nations agreed to perpetual peace, and Noble Drew Ali was there and present. And he showed the Moorish flag and the U.S. flag, or the U.S. banner, and he took the image of it, showing he publicly gave his declaration to perpetual peace. And no nation was supposed to harm the other unless they was backed into a corner. Pan-American Conference, which condemned war as an instrument of national policy and declared for the pacific settlement of conflicts between states. It is expected that a multilateral convention providing for both arbitration and conciliation will be concluded between the 21 nations, including the United States, which will participate. But are they still participating? We have, in the earlier videos, the telegrams from the different nations. And one of the nations said, how are the Sharifian government going to agree to this, because we're the ones all at war, but they're not at war. And they made the agreement that anyone that wishes to be a party to this Kellogg Pact, this international peace treaty, the first one for all nations, Noble Drew Ali said the uniting of Asia, and that's what the great meeting is on. That's what this was. It was a compact agreement of perpetual peace from all the different nations, and Noble Drew Ali was part of that. He has the image again of him there showing publicly perpetual peace. So why did that so-called nation start violating? And this takes it way out of any domestic kind of claim. This is international. This was an international treaty, the first one at Pan-American Conference in Havana, Cuba. It was called the Kellogg Compact. Russia, Germany, Japan, all of them. Turkey, Egypt, Britain, all of them. India, United States, Noble Drew Ali was there. The Moorish government or the Moorish nation was there. Now within this peace pact, it said you had to give an oral or written statement to the Secretary of State of Washington, D.C. But guess who was at the Havana, Cuba? Secretary Kellogg. So Noble Drew Ali already gave his, declaration to perpetual peace. When Secretary Kellogg began last December to bring up to date the peacemaking machinery of the American government, a number of arbitration treaties negotiated by Secretary Root were about to expire. And conciliation treaties existed with only 10 nations aside from the countries of Latin America. Since December 31st, nations have been offered the revised arbitration treaty by Mr. Kellogg. Now, what is this revised arbitration? Whatever the revised is, we don't want that. We want what happened at Havana, Cuba, and that's what Noble Drew Ali did. He handled his business in Havana, Cuba. Whatever they was trying to do after this revised statutes or whatever, some arbitration and conciliation treaties are also in effect between the United States and Latin America nations, but Secretary Kellogg has refrained from completing these in view of the fact that the Latin American nations are to meet in Washington in December. See, they're always trying to do something after the fact. That's why I said Noble Drew Ali was in Havana, Cuba when the real stuff went down, and he handled his business then. So everybody knew about the perpetual peace between all nations. You're not supposed to run up on another nation and treat them any which way, especially running up on them with firearms like the policia does in these days and times. That's an act of war. That's why Noble Drew Ali said, don't harm no one unless you're backed into a corner, and then you can drop the world on them. So they already broke this treaty, but it's an international treaty that we have proof that Noble Drew Ali was there, trying to have perpetual peace, which all nations agreed upon. This is where we get into the mandate. Settle disputes over boundaries. Nations still making agreements on who owns what. This is where we get into the mandate. Marcus Garvey was Noble Drew Ali's forerunner. You know why? Because Noble Drew Ali was able to sit back and watch the movements of Marcus Garvey. Like Marcus Garvey, 10 years before Noble Drew Ali went to Havana, Cuba conference, Marcus Garvey was at a conference, and he was pushing for a mandate for Africa. And this was 10 years. So Noble Drew Ali was sitting back watching the movements. And, you know, if he made an error in something, just like when Marcus Garvey went to prison for the mail fraud, what Noble Drew Ali do? He jumped on it and was telling them all, hey, you get any mail that's in my name, send it to me. He already was seeing the errors that was made, and he was improving on it. So that was his forerunner. So by the time Noble Drew Ali got to the Pan-American Conference in Havana, Cuba, he knew what to do to get the mandate for America. Because 10 years earlier, Marcus Garvey was pushing for an African mandate for so-called Africa. And we have that in the Maxim Almanac clippings, but you can go find it. But it's there. So yeah, settle disputes over boundaries. So we know Noble Drew Ali had a mandate for America. And in this clipping here, it's breaking down all the different places of what nations got what, but it don't break down North America. But we'll go through where it speaks of Morocco. To a conference among representatives of Great Britain, France, Spain, and Italy on international questions relating to Morocco and the international city of Tangier. You know why they was brought up the first? Because they was the ones colonizing and raping Morocco, pushing all the Moors out into the mountains, man, while they was taking over Holy Land, over oil too. I have a whole nother demonstration in regards to Jerusalem oil. To Morocco, the international city of Tangier, the United States government sent a note which said that it presumed the open door policy would be maintained. What do you mean open door? You mean just fly in and out of the empire and take advantage? France continued its pacification of Morocco, securing submission in 1928 of the country of the Ida Utana tribes southwest of Marrakesh. Farther east, Italy and France are reported to have reached an agreement by which certain territorial changes in southwest boundaries of Tripolitania will be made in exchange for the surrender of Italy's claim for special privileges for Italians in Tunisia territory. So they're still fighting, Europeans are still fighting over the colonization. They're still doing it. Even after they sit here in front of the nations and said they was going to have perpetual peace. It's crazy, man. These Europeans are nasty. Look how they switch it for the people that are just reading the newspaper. Washington. Shifts in international real estate, which leaves some nations with more and some with less territory, occurred in 1928. You see what I mean? Major territorial population and language changes of the year are reported in a bulletin from the Washington, D.C. headquarters of the National Geographic Society. In South America, a boundary sore spot was eliminated. Continues the bulletin. With the secession Putumayo region by Colombia to Peru, the area of Peru has been increased 13,000 square miles by the award of this tropic. That's why I'm saying, brothers and sisters, I have a lot of stuff, man, that if I had more Moors going in on this, because it's just one Muslim son going in on all this craziness, and you have to understand how all this works, because Noble Drew Ali said he gonna keep the European here long enough, so you know how it runs. Because the skeleton of this U.S. government, the operation, the skeleton of it, it's how it's supposed to be. But right now, man, it's full of water and it's rusted and the gears are worn down, man, and it's leaking. We need you Moors to gut it out and get this stuff right, man. You have a prophet that went, everybody talking about recognized internationally and all that. Well, we got a prophet that went to the first international peace conference in Havana, Cuba with all nations, and he was present, and he made his public proclamation and declaration of perpetual peace with all nations. And Moors are definitely the first to get ran up on with firearms before any of these other European nations can claim it. But like I said, you're being colonized, and they continue to do it afterwards. But we have all these Moors that wanted to go through the prophet's drawers and take his treasury and take mandates or whatever they felt like they needed. But it's not going to stop them from the wrath of Allah. Another very important key is the plenipotentiary that spoke to Cuba for the United States. And his residence was in Chicago at the same time of Noble Drew Ali. And guess what he was? Noble Judah. He was a European man, but he was also, his title was the plenipotentiary for Cuba, the speaker for United States. So he spoke between the United States and Cuba. And guess what? He was present at Havana, Cuba at this Pan-American conference as well. And we have the proof of that. And his wife owned AT&T. Her family owned AT&T. And how this international peace started was presidents started telegramming other presidents. But if Noble Drew Ali was the one doing this and entering the Sharifian government, he was a genius because he got them all riled up. You know what I'm saying? Because one president thought he was getting a message from another president, and then it started a big old the great meeting and all this stuff. All I'm saying is the nations that made this perpetual peace agreement, if they're not doing it in these days and times, then they are traitors. They are traitors to national principles and traitors to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. They made a vow. They signed a pact to outlaw war. And we have all the proof, even the pens and all, brothers and sisters. And most of all, most important, we have the Prophet Noble Drew Ali that's sitting there with perpetual peace. And the Moors haven't broke it because they've been the ones attacked. But all these different nations, they made a renunciation of war and they broke it. And this is international. Praise be to Allah and his prophet Noble Drew Ali. Divine honors to the Moorish divine and national movement of the world.